Hello everyone and welcome to a GiantSlayerTV LoR deck tech. This is a series where we're going to look at some of the most powerful decks in Legends of Runeterra and break them down to see how they work. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at Nightfall Aggro. This archetype was created in large part by Call of the Mountain expansion, which brought the Nightfall mechanic. Nightfall cards grant you a bonus as long as they weren't the first card played in a turn. This can lead to powerful turns where Nightfall is triggered multiple times. Before we get into the video, please take a second to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to stay up to date with all of our Legends of Runeterra content. Check out the links in our description to find all of our social media pages. We have a lot of people working behind the scenes to keep the content flowing and to allow for our weekly Legends of Runeterra tournaments. Now, the clock strikes midnight. Nightfall Aggro aims to get onto the board as early as turn 1, however, since the deck is trying to cast multiple cards in a turn, it may find itself passing a bit in the early turns of a game. The deck's most powerful early curves are enabled by Lunari Duskbringer. The Dusk Petal Dust she gives you can be used to cheat easy Nightfall triggers as well as allow you to spend spell mana on your units. The deck's champions are Diana and Nocturne, which both reward you for playing a deck that hits a critical mass of Nightfall effects. For the low cost of 2 mana, Diana will either demand removal or threaten to remove something from the enemy board. If she is allowed to stay on the board long enough, she'll level up and continue to threaten the board once again. Her champion spell, Pale Cascade, is incredibly powerful. It will give a unit +2/+1 at burst speed, but if Nightfall is active, it will also draw you a card. Nocturne is Nightfall Aggro's top end, and in many spots, it's win condition. Alone, he's a 4-mana 5/3, but once Nightfall is active, he will give the enemy board -1 attack and grant an enemy of your choice vulnerable. Nocturne levels up when he sees 5 Nightfall units attack, and as long as he is on the board, your units will become fearsome. Nocturne is often able to set up powerful swings where an opponent simply is unable to block the horde of attackers coming in. Nocturne also has an incredibly useful champion spell, much like Diana. Unspeakable Horror will drain a target for 1, and if Nightfall is active, will add a random Nightfall card to your hand. The low drops in this deck are Lunari Priestess, Stygian Onlooker, and Solari Soldier. Lunari Priestess will enable some of your strongest Nightfall curves. Stygian Onlooker threatens heavy damage on a fearsome body for just 1 mana. Solari Soldier is a standalone strong 1-drop who will lead into your Nightfall cards very well. In the 2-drop slot, we have Lunari Shadestalker, who is one of the most efficient elusives in the game and a solid clock. The 3-drops are where things start to get spicy for Nightfall. Every variant of this build plays Doombeast due to it being great at closing out games. Most builds of Nightfall will play Crescent Guardian due to it being a solid overwhelm beater. Some versions of Nightfall also run Lunari Priestess as well to keep your hand size up in the late game. Filling out the deck's top end is Cygnus the Moonstalker. Cygnus is often not included as more of a 2-of, but he is a solid late game finisher, making a solid elusive board to attack with. If you have a Dusk Petal Dust, Cygnus can be cheated out a turn early, threatening heavy damage if not dealt with immediately. As for the deck's spell package, you have Pale Cascade and Unspeakable Horror, since the copies you get off of Diana and Nocturne are not enough. Both of these spells are just really good. They help you control the board, activate Nightfall, and refund a card on play. Fading Memories is incredibly useful for this deck, allowing you to burst speed trigger Nightfall while letting you get an ephemeral copy of anything on the board. This is useful in a variety of situations, like letting you copy Lunari Duskbringer for an extra Dusk Petal Dust, or a Doombeast for more damage. Stalking Shadows provides the deck crucial refill for the late game, allowing you to choose a card, draw it, and add an ephemeral copy of it to your hand. This is especially useful with, you guessed it, Doombeast, who in multiples is an all-star at closing out the game and keeping you alive. Being burst speed, Stalking Shadows is a great tool for activating Nightfall as well. When doing your mulligan for Nightfall Aggro, it is important to consider your early turns and how you will be most effectively able to trigger Nightfall throughout your curve. Lunari Duskbringer and Solari Soldier are both solid in the early game, while Stygian Onlooker is a passable 1-drop, but better on Nightfall turns. Diana is worth keeping, but often not worth playing out until she'll be able to remove a threat on the board. If you have an early curve and some Nightfall plays in hand, consider Fading Memories if it makes sense. In matchups where you know specific cards will be important, Stalking Shadows is an excellent keep as well. When you expect to see 1 health units from your opponent, Unspeakable Horror will be great to have in the early game. Of course, not all Nightfall decks are the same, and you may opt for some other tech choices. Some lists go as far as playing an atrocity to gain access to further reach. Bark Beast also makes it into some builds as a strong 1-drop that will get bigger later on. Some versions of Nightfall even move away from Targon, taking on a build that's very reminiscent of They Who Endure. Nightfall is still a very new deck and still seeing innovation. It'll be interesting to see where the build ends up as the format continues to evolve. Are you afraid of the dark? Let us know if Nightfall Aggro has made you start sleeping with a nightlight in the comments below. And if you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to stay up to date with more Giant Slayer TFT content. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.